Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from OK_tank 6436. AITA for wearing a bikini on a family trip. Despite my conservative mother-in-law's complaints, I 34 FM married to my husband 33M and have a great marriage so far. This week we went to a trip with my husband's family to Hawaii. The trip included his parents, his two brothers and their wives, his two sisters and their husbands, and us both. My husband is the youngest, and all of his siblings have kids ranging from 2 years to 12 years. We all paid for our own flight tickets and hotel rooms. We arrived late last night, briefly caught up with everyone, and went straight to B. The next day we had breakfast, and went to the beach afterwards. I was wearing a sundress and a bikini underneath, for when we went to the beach afterwards. A little background, I have a pretty average body type, and have been wearing bikinis all my life. The ones I got for this trip were pretty standard ones with good coverage. Think about a triangle bra type top, and a cheeky bikini briefs bottoms. I'm not talking about a micro top and thongs that barely covers anything. I know what's appropriate to wear for a family vacation. Anyways, when the time came to go into the waters, I took off my sundress and went for a swim. I then helped my niece and nephews make sandcastles. Overall, everyone had a great time. While going back to our rooms, my mother-in-law pulled me aside and told me how disrespectful and disgusting it is that I chose to wear a bikini for a family vacation, which included toddlers and teenagers, and not to mention other males. She also singled me out by saying that out of all the other females of my age on the trip, husband's two sisters and two sisters-in-law, how I was the only one who wore an inappropriate swimsuit while the other females wore a one-piece swimsuit. She said there was a Target right outside our hotel, and I should buy some modest swimsuits suitable for the occasion. I politely declined and told her that while I appreciate her thoughts, the swimsuits I have are modest and won't be needing more. When I told this to my husband, he said he respects my choice of clothes, and he didn't feel my bikini was inappropriate, but he feels that I should get a few one-piece swimsuits with more coverage just to keep the peace. I feel otherwise. AITA? Edit. Since many of you asked what swimsuit I was wearing, I've added it in the comments. Edit 2. Thank you for all your support and responses. Let me clear out a few things that was pointed out in the comments. 1. My husband fully supports my choice of clothes and my opinions. The only reason he said to keep the peace is because this is the first time since COVID that the entire extended family is on a vacation together, and we don't want to spoil it for everyone by making a scene with MIL. He did say he will step in to defend me if this is brought up again. 2. I told one of the sister-in-law who I am close with about this incident, and she said the same thing as most of you. There is nothing wrong with that bikini. She said the only reason she wears one-piece swimsuits is because postpartum ruined her belly. If not, Sho would have worn a two-piece suit too. 3. While many of you suggested to buy a skimpy revealing bikini to show my MIL what an inappropriate bikini truly is, I'm not going to do that. But some of the comments were hilarious. Here's what I am going to do. I'm going to continue to wear bikinis on this vacation, I don't have anything else, and wear a cover-up when I'm not in the water. And I will have a conversation with my mother-in-law about this topic, only if she brings up this issue again. OP is not an AH for wearing a modest bikini that she feels comfortable in. And when her husband also supports her choice, she did nothing wrong here, so she is not an AH, and I would rate OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP's mother-in-law, her comments are unreasonable, and she is trying to overstep OP's boundaries. So, I would rate her 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Minahaldien. AITA for wanting an apology after my sister sent me into a hysterical breakdown. I, 24, lived with my mum my whole life, and a sane human being, she's 20, lived with my dad her whole life, and it incredibly disrespectful to everyone. 2 weeks ago, I stayed over at my dad's for one night. We have recently got back in contact after not speaking for 10 years due to parents divorcing. We had breakfast. My dad went to work, and I stayed home with my sister to work and chill with her. After a couple hours, I said I'm going to go home in about an hour's time because I have things to do. I'll probably get an Uber because I don't want to interrupt my dad's day. I hate feeling like a burden, plus it's a new relationship, and I recently lost my car because of an accident. My sister started saying, Tell my dad he'll take you. I said I'll get an Uber or a bus. I have pre-bought tickets that need using. Plus it was Friday prayer time. I don't want to disrupt that. Then she started swearing at me and being rude, saying it's your dad's house. Let him take you home. He never gets to spend time with you. I didn't tell him to not speak to me for 10 years, LOL. I got pretty upset and said, well, he didn't speak to me for years. What would you expect? To be fair, I'm really busy. I work 2 jobs and I'm newly married and juggle my life and family visits, etc. It's a lot, and I'm still at university. My sister, on the other hand, does nothing. I then proceed to grab my work laptop and go upstairs into my bedroom and start crying and texting my older sister and husband about how she just lashed out at me. A few minutes pass, and I could hear her downstairs. I think she was voice noting Dad. And then after a few minutes, I heard my dad downstairs. Then he came up and I was crying, and he hugged me and asked me, why are you crying? So I was like, because she's always so mean to me, and all I do is try to be a good sister to her. And then Dad was like, let's go downstairs and have a chit chat. And I was like, I just want to go home. And then he heard the door downstairs move. So he called her, and she came up and into the room and was like, why are you crying? And started shouting the same stuff that happened downstairs. My dad was trying to tell her to stop saying the same things because we're trying to forget about it. And then I was like, it's not a big deal, but you were mean to me since I've been here and it's just not nice. And then she started shouting at my dad and blaming him, saying, this is the same thing I said to you last week, double standards. And I was crying and like, it's not fair how you're shouting at me and now you're shouting at him. She believes that he goes out of his way for me and my older sister. And then she was really started to shout at me in my face and I couldn't take it. So I stood up and told her to stop shouting at me. Like I went in her face and screamed it. Because I really can't take that stuff after I've been through a lot recently with my mom's side of the family, who I had to cut off because it was so toxic. I felt suffocated. My dad was holding one of my arms and I immediately fell back on the bed and started dry puking because I was crying so much. I was hysterical. I've never been in such a bad state. All I wanted was to go home at that point. She continued shouting and then she went into her room and was like, I'm leaving. Keep her. Keep your daughters, slammed the doors and everything, and kept coming in and out, and my dad was like, shut up. Stop saying things. And she still carried on. I was holding my ears and head and crying and repeatedly saying, I want to go home. And she was screaming in her room, keep your daughters, blah blah. Then I calmed down and said to Dad, I'm going to get ready and go home, and he apologized, and I was saying, it's not a big problem. It's just the explosiveness is too much for something that was not a big thing to cause an issue or this much commotion over. I left the room to avoid anything growing, and he was saying, I'm sorry, and I was like, she'll be fine, but it's just the explosiveness. So then he went to her room and she was like, get out, get out, get out. I packed up my things and got my Uber, exactly like I said I would, and went home. I cried on the entire journey home, and for hours when I got home, and even more when my husband got home. I was so upset and hurt. Prior to this, the day before, I had given her so many early Christmas gifts and even made her a custom advent calendar, all by myself, with things I picked just for her. And I've tried over the last 6 months. She's been in my life to really be the big sister and include her in everything we possibly can. And this was the thanks I got for it. LOL. My dad, I saw him last week and this weekend. He's apologetic and says she's always been like this. She's never changed. I guess it's different when you're dealing with one volatile person, but then to put others who are new in your life into the crossfire, it's really difficult. My sister has not approached me, so I sent her this message a couple of days ago. She showed it to my dad and did not reply to me. He said he will talk to me when he sees me. It basically said, I did nothing to hurt you. I've never had an argument like this with my other siblings or mum before. We're clearly very different people, and that's fine. Any opportunity you gave me to be a sister, I did what I could for you, and I feel underappreciated. You need to understand you hurt and upset me. I hope you've had time to think. You said you didn't want to lose me, but what you did, where does that leave your statement? And said, hope you're okay. I asked Dad and my older sister how you are because it didn't feel right to check in with you. Like I said, she hasn't responded. My sister, older one, and husband think my message was perfectly fine, but clearly the 20-year-old doesn't think so. I'm writing this because I've just found out she's sold quite a lot of the things I've given her over the last year or so, including a Miffy teddy that cost me like €60 in Amsterdam, and everything I got her for Christmas, including the gifts she got me, that I left there when I left that day in a hurry. She's also selling the dress she bought to wear at my wedding. AITA, or what the heck did I do wrong? That I'm the one getting all the shit and being told to be a bigger person, when I actually think I did nothing wrong? OP is not an AH, her sister is an AH for shouting at OP and blaming her. She was very aggressive and rude towards OP. OP did nothing wrong. Her inquiry is completely justified, so I would rate OP's sister 1.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from national_quail_9565. AITA for losing my temper to a narcissist at work. I, 30F, have a job in a small mom-pop type business and work directly under work mom. I have had my job for over 3 years, and my job roles have increased and changed over the years. Recently, I have taken a larger role in event management at the shop and do a lot of the behind-the-scenes coordination. Back in April, the business introduced publicly a new face without introducing us. His role, 35M, is that he basically shows up to the events, drinks, and mingles, and then moderates guest talks. He technically isn't even an employee. He just became friends with work mom and suddenly is everywhere. I've been a little weary of him since he came into the picture because he makes a big impression on work mom and the decisions that the business makes, including financial decisions. But I have been professional, pleasant, and try to reach out to collaborate. Over the past several months, because we are just starting December, most of my emails to him are ignored. He holds information I need to do my job. When he does message me, it is after he had a private meeting with work mom, and he is delegating my work. Usually when we talk in person, he is more interested in his drink or phone than trying to get to know me. I even brought up my concerns at one point on the phone to work mom, saying he was stepping on my toes, since I actually get paid to do a specific job, and that I didn't think he was a team player. My concerns were dismissed, and boss praises him to everyone she meets. Long story long of holding my breath at work, last week things took a really negative turn. In a group chat with the 3 of us, he puts up a message to self-praise his accomplishments at what a good job he is doing. He has continued to hold on to info. I need to do my job, so I message that it is really important for information to be properly documented. He proceeds to call me and work mom to berate me on how I never have a nice thing to say to him, how I need to reframe my way of thinking by comparing my messages to his. Also says he used to work for a mental health clinic and I need to work on having a more positive demeanor. That I don't ever say he's done a good job. Gives examples of how he compliments me at events, but I don't compliment him, etc. I regret that I lost my temper in the phone call, but I defended myself saying I have never been unprofessional. He has never tried to have a conversation with me, and when he does it is condescending. He is not my boss, but tries to tell me how to do my job, and delegates me work. That him sharing examples of how he compliments me is actually just him complimenting himself, and that my ability to do my job is not dependent on giving him compliments. I hung up on the call before I could say I quit or make things worse. Because I was so mad, I said I didn't want to work with him anymore. The phone call lasted a total of 7 minutes, and work mom never intervened. A little later, she called me and said she was shocked I felt that way towards him. I brought up that I told her months ago there were concerns. She moved on to work-related talk and never followed up with me on the matter. Now comes today, we are discussing an upcoming event, and I am relaying all the info I am still missing. I ask when the next meeting will be scheduled for the event, and she says I don't need to be on it since I didn't want to be on video calls with him. I replied that I didn't want to be on calls alone with him, but as long as there were mediators, I would be okay with it. I said, honestly, I am still shocked by how unprofessional that phone call was and how it disrupted our workday, and stated that my ability to do my job is not dependent on stroking his ego. She said that call was really bad, on both sides, and that she was sad we didn't get along, but she made the decision to keep us separate. But we both had valid feelings, and he is doing a lot for this event. So, I am sidelined on meetings that he can still attend. He is just currently her bestie, and it feels like he has her sympathy playing the victim, when really as my manager she should have at least tried to see my perspective of being ambushed, and try to reach out to me regarding the work environment. Yet, I'm expected to still do my job without information, and potentially bust my working the event while he drinks and mingles. AITA for standing up for myself, because at this point, I am thinking I will quit before the event. I just don't feel like I can trust her anymore to prevent this toxic work environment to continue. OP is not an AH for prioritizing her well-being over a new person in the workplace. The new person is an AH for creating a toxic environment and questioning OP's work. OP's concern is 100% valid. She did nothing wrong. So, I would rate the new person 1.5 out of 5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now move on to the next story from plenty_attitude_35. AITA. For breaking off a friendship over a broken promise? I'm a high school student who has been in the same school since it opened, which was also my PK3 year. At the start, this school has always felt like a family, and faculty has always cared a lot about students' well-being, not only physically or in terms of grades, but also mentally. In the past 4 or 5 years, the school has had many significant faculty changes, and is now not what it used to be. Teachers and other faculty simply don't care about you or how you are doing. I have experienced this firsthand when I reached out for emotional help because my grades were low, even though I was trying my best, only to be met with "try harder" or "everyone is doing just as bad," etc. I have struggled significantly with mental health as a result of school, and they are well aware of this. I am now in my year 11, and this year has been going terribly for me. I had multiple breakdowns, almost relapsing, and overall a terrible time. I made the difficult decision to leave the school and move to a less content-heavy program, which is online. This wasn't easy as I was scared I wouldn't see my friends as often and really did like the social aspect of school. But if I stayed in that school, I would have ended up dead, literally. Now, I had not told anyone the news. All my friends and teachers were in the dark about why I was absent and what I was planning. This is because I did not want the school to be able to prepare for me leaving or hear about it from students. I wanted the school to hear it from me and have my turn to say everything I needed to say. Now I have 2 best friends. Let's call them BSF1 and BSF2. BSF1 has been my best friend since 3rd grade and wouldn't hurt a fly. She is the sweetest and most caring person I have ever met. On the other hand, BSF2 has a few issues. She has always been loyal to me and a good friend, but she can be manipulative, and I have to have strong boundaries with her as she is also very self-centered. Thus far, I haven't had any issues with her that have to do with my trust towards her. I shared my issues with school with both of them, and eventually, I told BSF1 what I was going to do. I asked her not to say anything to anyone, as this was very personal and a big deal to me. She agreed and heard me out about my problems and everything related to this. She gave me her word, and I believed her, of course. Now, BSF2 had been bugging me about not going to school, and I had told her multiple times to leave it alone and stop pressuring for answers. I told her I was doing okay mentally, and it wasn't because of that. BSF2 started bothering BSF1 about it, saying how she was so worried, etc., because she knew she wouldn't get answers from me. BSF1 didn't say anything to her. Of course, she is a sweetheart. But she did tell me that BSF2 was very worried, and whatever. She told me that she is someone you can count on and whatever. I wasn't planning on telling BSF2 at all, but BSF1 convinced me to. She didn't do it pushing or whatever, but after all the things she said to me, I decided to take the plunge and just trust my friend. For context, I have many trust issues with people, and I was thinking that it would be a good thing to do for myself and my issues. When I told BSF2 about it, I almost immediately regretted it. BSF2 started going on about how I could do this to her, and if I needed help academically, she could always help me. We have one class together, and she always distracted me in it, basically making the whole thing about her. She said that she also struggled in school, and this was apparently a reason for me to stay. I told her there is nothing she can say or do to change my mind, and that it is final. I asked her to please not tell anyone, and only my mother, my sister, and BSF1 knew about the situation. I told her how I didn't want the school to hear about it from anyone else but me. That was 2 weeks ago. This week, I got a text asking me if I was leaving school and moving to an online program. I was furious. This was not someone I had discussed that information with, and there was no way for her to know such details unless BSF1 or BSF2 said anything. BSF1, I knew, would never give me her word and then go back on it, and I had a sinking feeling that it was BSF2. I talked to more people, and everyone's answers were that BSF2 had told them. Here comes the kicker. I confronted BSF2 with a simple message asking if she told anyone. She said no. I asked her again, but now giving the evidence I had and how either it was her who said it or BSF1. In these messages, she didn't even fully admit to it by saying, yes, I did that, but instead went on to tell her side of the story, which goes as follows. My friends in school and teachers were asking her again and again, time after time, why I wasn't coming to school, and the pressure of it all was too much. So I told them, maybe she is leaving the school. These are my words, not hers, but I do have screenshots of a longer message which says this. Reading this was baffling to me. I really didn't know what to say, but I never really said anything hurtful. Now, BSF2 has convinced BSF1 to basically tell me that it's not a big deal, and that it was justified to tell teachers about it since they needed to know where I was. Keep in mind, no teacher in that school ever reached out to me or to my mother. I decided to cut off BSF2 after trying to talk to her and get her to understand and getting nowhere. On top of that, I am beyond furious that she would put so much pressure on BSF1 to get involved, and that she has manipulated her into believing whatever twisted side of the story she has. Am I the AH? OP is not an AH for cutting off her toxic best friend too. OP's best friend too is an AH for breaking the promise she made with OP. OP's reaction is completely justified. She did nothing wrong. So, I would rate OP's best friend 3.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Whipped. I just spent 10 days in Thailand with a girl that's a friend. I think I blew my chances at becoming anything more. I, 29M, just arrived back home after a 10-day holiday in Thailand with a lovely European woman. We'll call her Clara, 26F. Clara and I have known each other for a few years now and have had a connection since we first met each other while working for about 5 months in the rural northwest of WA, Western Australia. Literally, since the first day we met, at work or after work, her whenever we were around each other, we talked and interacted like we had known each other for years already, but we were both in relationships with other people at the time, so it stayed just as friends, and nothing more. Since then, we have both traveled and done our own things and chatted on and off. The best part being it's a very low-maintenance friendship, and if we ever did get to see each other, we had the best time ever as friends, and never went any further. Except one time we were at a hotel room with a bunch of other friends just drinking, listening to music, and then we all started wrestling and just doing drunk people stuff around the room. Then when another friend arrived, everybody else went downstairs to meet them, while Clara and I stayed upstairs, still running around doing the same drunken stuff. We ended up in the laundry room, with her face resting in my palm and her biting, not hard, the end of my thumb, while staring into each other's eyes. I kissed her, and she kissed back. It only lasted a few seconds, and then she pulled away and said we shouldn't. I honestly didn't care, because I just put it down to drunken shenanigans. We moved on, had a great night, and that was the end of that. Over time, we both had relationships with other people, and just lived our lives, and whenever we got the chance to hang out or see each other, we would drink to catch up and just chill. She flew from over east, and spent Christmas here at our place, that I usually shared with a couple of people. But at this moment, there were about a total of 13 people staying here for the holidays. We all went out one night, got drunk, had a great time, and then came back to my place. We ended up sleeping in my bed, but nothing happened, which for me was kind of weird. But at the same time, I was happy she had somewhere safe to stay, and had enough trust between us to do so. She only stayed the one night, as she was also waiting for some other, at the time mutual friends, to arrive as they drove from over east. We spent the whole next day together just chilling at the beach and getting over our hangovers. Then until recently, she was finally leaving Australia for good. She stayed at our place again for about a week or so. This time she just slept on the couch, but a few nights out of that week, we would go out, have a few drinks, and then ended up drunk wrestling around the living room and on the couch. At some points we would kind of stop and just stare at each other or even just cuddle on the couch, drunk or sober. I wasn't sure if I should make a move or do something more because the last time I did when the moment seemed right, she said we shouldn't. So I kind of put her in the friend zone in my mind and didn't want to make anything weird. Then one night we cooked dinner together the last night before leaving the country. As we were talking and preparing food, we both happened to turn and grab something and ended up face to face, and again just went silent and stared into each other's eyes for a moment. Again, I didn't make a move or anything, because during this week she would say things like, "Do you think when we are together people know we are friends? Or like brother and sister kind of?" Or during random conversations while we would be cuddling on the couch, she would mention how she was on her period and how us being friends is awesome. I honestly thought it's better to stay friends and never cross that line, because if I really wanted so bad, I could get that from other FWB or go out and find it elsewhere on a night out. Before she left, she said she wanted me to come to Thailand for her birthday, at this point 5 months away. I said sure, as I needed a holiday, and what better excuse. But after she had left, I started playing these situations in my head, and also after the odd drunk video calls or messages we would send each other. I came to realize maybe I did want to cross that line with her. Fast forward to now, I went to Thailand for 10 days. 7 of those days we spent together chilling and cruising around and doing our thing, but nothing happened. We did our normal thing, but there never seemed to be a good moment to make a move, at least to me. I mean, I landed in Bangkok early morning, and she landed in the evening. The moment she arrived, she told me how she was on her period, and is sick, and doesn't feel good, and that's honestly cool. I was just genuinely happy to see her, after not seeing her for a while. We made our way down from Bangkok to an island she had already spent a lot of time on previously, and she was planning on staying and being there for the next few months. She had a bunch of people already there that she knew. I got really seasick on the way to the island, and just wanted to chill, but the people she knew were already planning to go out this night. The people she knew were lovely as well, very welcoming, and were genuinely nice people all around. But I was messed up. We sat there and drank. But eventually I just went back to the room to sleep and rest before the party. Then when it came to the party, I was still feeling messed up and didn't want to go. She said I really don't have to, if I don't want to. She said she can call at 11:30 p.m. or midnight because they won't be leaving for the actual party until then, so I can get some rest and maybe come out. I agreed, stayed to get some sleep, as I thought it would be all good. She called around midnight and I said I was still feeling messed up, which, in all honesty, I probably could have gone. Like, I wasn't sick, I just didn't want to be around a bunch of drunk people. She said it was fine that she was kind of drunk and had some mushrooms and just kept telling me how much she loved me. And when she gets back, she's coming back to wake me up. Which, sure enough, around 4 to 5 a.m. she comes back, walks into the room, and jumped into bed with me. We just laid there and cuddled for a bit. I was trying to talk and not fall straight back to sleep. But she got up, and I pretty much went straight back to sleep. But then from this day, things got weird. She was kind of standoffish. And the usual chill Clara I knew was gone, like it was definitely something to do with the hangover. But I have been hungover with her plenty of times, and this was different. Then the next 3 days, she would be happy and then standoffish, when I would make the usual inside jokes or push her buttons and be a bit annoying like we usually do to each other, or things we would usually find humor in together. I would get the cold shoulder, or she would say it's nothing, I'm just hangry. But then also she would kiss me on my cheek or forehead, and on some occasions would even give me a quick peck on my chest while we hugged and cuddled for a bit, which had been normal behavior for a while at this point. Now I'm confused. After all this time I had thought we are friends, and nothing more. I didn't pick up any signs that were out of our normal behavior together that directly pointed to or told me to make a move. I mean, our first day on the island, somebody asked how we knew each other, or asked if we were related or something, and she just said in front of everyone that I'm her brother-in-law. It didn't bother me, it just made me think, well, cool, let's just keep it as friends. So I wasn't planning to make any moves from that point on, but just enjoy the fact I'm literally on an island in paradise with someone that I'm not in love with. Well, the more I think about it, I'm not sure anymore, but that I genuinely have a lot of love for. I left and went back to Bangkok a day before I planned to because I felt weird, and that honestly, if we were together any longer, it might affect the friendship we do have. But I feel the damage is already done. While in Bangkok, I went out the last 2 nights, found a Kiwi lad and German dude about the same age at a random bar, and got completely pissed up, and had a great time seeing a side of Bangkok I had not seen or experienced before. But now being back in Australia, I can't stop thinking about it. Did I miss something? Did I do something wrong? I can usually just move past something like this, but with her it is different. Now I feel like my own insecurities stopped me from being a man and doing something like taking control of the situation, or caused me to be blinded and misread signs that were clearly there. and possibly stopped myself from actually being happy with someone who is scarily similar in humor, music, interests, hobbies, basically everything we do, but also just different enough to keep things interesting. I want to call and ask her and be straightforward and tell her what I'm thinking, but is that the right thing to do? Has that ship sailed already, and now I have to accept I missed my chance? It has only been just under a week since I saw her last. Should I give it more time before calling, asking if I'm just delusional, or does she also feel the same way? Or is this a one-way ticket to ruining a friendship with someone I truly care about and would actually be devastated if I was to lose having them in my life? OP is not an AH for being confused in his platonic relationship. OP's friend is an AH for not clarifying her feelings for him and distancing herself from him. OP did nothing wrong. He was just trying to stay within his limits. As for scores, I would rate OP's friend 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye. See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.